Greetings. My name is Alex Helwer Weikengruber. I am here to talk to you about 5 industrial organizational psychology questions. A little bit about myself. I graduated from Central Michigan in 2021 with a bachelor's degree in psychology. I've worked for the Navy for approximately 12 years, dealing with organizational problems as well as working on aircraft. Currently, I work in the HR department helping students with pay and personnel issues. The first question I would like to address is, how have recent events since 2020 until present day affected the course of both research and practical uses in organizational psychology? The first thing I'd like to touch on is the largest event that has impacted organizations as a whole. That is the COVID-19 pandemic. When that occurred, companies had to shut down. Many people were without jobs, and those who maintained their jobs had to go to a more remote work from home setting. After the pandemic was over, a lot of companies realized that maybe these remote settings were the best application to work instead of bringing people back to the office, paying for office spaces, all these things combined to give us what we now are looking at in organizational psychology. Typically, the non-academic employment settings for organizational psychologists include businesses, organizations, consulting firms, nonprofits, and things of that nature. Although actual job duties may vary quite a bit, many organizational psychologists are involved in organizational change and developing activities to integrate that change into the company's current policies. What this means is somebody talks to an organizational psychologist and they say, hey, we want you to look at the policies we currently have, and we want you to make some changes because we're trying to see if it is feasible to go to a hybrid or a remote setting for our employees. So that's how the practical side has changed. Because of COVID-19, a lot of companies were awakened to this new form of working. In a short but sweet explanation of how it has affected the research side of organizational psychology, the research and the practical side will feed off of each other. This is known as the scientist-practitioner model. So when the organizational practical side of things needs more data to support these theories that they're trying to integrate into companies, then the research side of organizational psychology will look more into those issues. The next thing I'm going to get into would be if I was working as a consultant and the recruitment director from a local university calls me and wants to get a more diverse pool of highly qualified faculty applicants. I'm going to talk about how I would advise them to expand their pool of qualified applicants and what activities or events they should consider opening their pool for. First, I want to do the method of advertisement, and that would be either printing or electronically via social media. The reason for this is it is the least costly recruiting method, and aside from that, they could try and do walk-ins or maybe referrals, but advertising on a website would be one of the cheaper, easier options to get their job out there. After that, they would want to take in a skills inventory and a personality inventory. The reasoning behind both skills and personality is even though an employee may be fully qualified to perform a job, their personality may clash with the culture that the company has set up or the university. Applicants will be more attracted to stay in organizations with cultures that they are compatible with and that their personalities do not clash with. At the end of their advertising and their screening of applicants, they're going to develop what's called a yield ratio of the recruiting source. And that's going to be the absolute number of applicants generated relative to the number of highly qualified applicants. Essentially, when you break this down, that means maybe they got 100 people who applied for the job, but only 10 of them are truly somebody that they would want to hire. So they had a 10% yield ratio. Now, some events that they're going to want to integrate after they've chosen some of their employees would be socialization within the organization. And that's going to be how you transition the employee from an outsider to an insider of the organization. An effective method in the academic world specifically, since this is for a university, would be a mentoring program where you can assign the new faculty member to a more senior faculty member. This mentor may be able to provide advice on things such as teaching, or maybe beginning the new research program, how tenure works, and even navigating the university politics as far as who is who and who can get you what type deals. But the mentorship program has proven to be effective in the academic environment. The third question I would like to touch on would be how to reduce work-family conflict and high performers for the longevity of that performer. The largest thing that you would need to do as an organization is to have work-family policies. Some of these things may include elder care, education, volunteering, or maybe some self-care exercises or allowing visits to the doctor. You can see this in a lot of organizations where you look at Starbucks and they are known for giving tuition assistance, or in my case, the military, you get tuition assistance, you get medical. Whenever I have to go to the doctor or if I take my family to the doctor, I can usually talk to my supervisor and it's a very easy conversation. Hey, Thursday, I'm not going to be able to come in because I have obligations with my family. Is there any issues with me not coming into work until noon? Or maybe I come in until noon and I have my appointment in the afternoon, and you can work around with it. What these are known as when you implement these policies is a family-friendly environment. When you have a family-friendly environment, you're going to attract better talent to your organization and you're going to reduce turnover in that talent. It's also going to affect the employees' attitudes in a positive way, and it will increase their job satisfaction and commitment. Another highly important thing to note is when you have this family-friendly environment, it has been shown that employees will accept a lower salary to start with if they know that they are entering a family-friendly environment. Another thing is if we are planning on working remotely, the term work-family integration becomes a very important term because that's how you blend the domains of both family and work. But if you have a good mixture and employees who believe in the culture and they don't feel that their family and their work will clash with each other, but instead they work together, then you can have employees who will check emails in their off time because they're happy to do so, because during their work time, they're able to take their kids to the doctor, or they're able to take their wife to their appointments, or any of those type of things. And you really want to work on the work-family integration to be successful and to have minimum turnover, especially in high-performing employees. The fourth question I would like to talk about is finding a current job description and discussing how I would improve it by adding or removing elements that lead to the overall performance. I'm going to choose my own job because that is the easiest way to relate it from me to you. If you go to Navy.com and you type in aviation electrician's mate under jobs, it will list under job description maintaining, testing, and troubleshooting electrical equipment on various aircraft. That description is very broad and I don't think it covers everything that it needs to, but I'll get into that later. The next thing it covers is the work environment, where it mentions shore and sea as your potential work environments. That is an accurate assessment. You can be put on a ship or you can stay at shore, which you're working in a normal building, possibly in a hangar. That is a very accurate description. It then goes into making rank and pay increases, and it's very vague on how all of that works. As somebody who's been in for 12 years, I can navigate that field pretty well. But if I was looking into joining the Navy, there's a lot to be desired, especially if that's how I'm making money. Because most people aren't joining the military because they really want to serve their country. They're joining because they want to serve their country with the incentives of getting paid, going to college, all that other stuff. So explaining how rank works in a better way on the website, I think, could really improve the recruiting efforts. The final thing is the qualifications and requirements to join this job. So this is the physical and mental requirements that are needed as per the U.S. government to get into the military. It's very entry-level stuff. It says you need a high school diploma, you can't be colorblind, things of that nature. It's very basic, and it doesn't go into personality traits like some other jobs might. The things that I would add to this job description would be the extra duties that you're going to be performing. Although it said maintaining, testing, and troubleshooting electrical systems is your main job, you're also going to have to do the grunt work for your first 2 years or so. So you're going to be taking out the trash, you're going to be doing fuel samples, you're going to be just doing the jobs that people have done before you, but no longer want to do. You're joining at the bottom of the totem pole, and you have to work your way up. But that's not in the job description. It just says you're going to come in, you're going to work on airplanes. And that's not really the case. For the first 2 years or so, you don't really touch airplanes that much, at least not in your official job capacity. It also does not talk about the extra jobs that are required for you just because it's a military environment, such as standing watch. This may include sitting in an office where the phone is and waiting for somebody to call. And if they do call, you are the person who picks it up and relays the information to the correct person. None of that's on the website. It also doesn't mention that down the road, your job can open up to potentially other jobs. Like right now, I'm an electrician, but I'm instructing the new accession sailors on how to become an electrician. I've now become a master training specialist. None of this is on the website, that you can venture down different avenues that the military offers. I would like to touch on advancement. It should really dig into how advancement is. It just says if you're performing really well, you're going to get paid more, which is slightly true. But also, advancement's currently based on an exam that it does not even mention on the website. In order to make rank after your time and service requirements, which is up to E4 now, you must perform well on an exam and match that with your performance evaluations. And finally, I would like them to integrate some critical thinking skills onto the job requirements. As an instructor, you really see this a lot more. There's students who come in and they are very smart. They can memorize items, they can understand what you're saying. But as a troubleshooter, you need to be able to have critical thinking and analytical thinking. And you don't see this a lot with some of these students. It's a term called nuking it, where they overthink the problem and they cannot get from point A to point B through critical thinking. They can only memorize, and they're smart in that manner. So that attribute should be added to the website. You must be able to have critical thinking. The final question I'll be touching on tonight is going to be some constraints and some resolutions that can reduce counterproductive behavior, specifically when workers are putting in less time than they were hired to put in. There's two things that'll contribute to counterproductive behavior such as this, and that's going to be person-based and situation-based. With this being multiple groups of people that are making the same issue of counterproductive behaviors of not coming in as much as they're supposed to, I'm going to focus more on the situation than the person, because there's different groups of people and they're all doing the same thing. When I talk about the situation, I'm talking about organizations. I'm talking about norms. I'm talking about opportunities and possible injustices. We're going to touch on each of these terms. The first one being opportunity. If a person's work is constantly monitored and they are constantly being looked at and making sure that they are actually at work doing what they're supposed to be, there's a smaller margin for them to develop counterproductive behaviors. However, if you get a new employee and you immediately are like, hey, you need to be doing work by yourself. Nobody's going to be monitoring you. Nobody's going to be watching you. We expect you to be here 40 hours a week. Here's your workload. Have fun. But nobody checks up on them. There is a possibility, or a higher possibility, that this person might say, well, if I finish my workload in 20 hours, instead of asking for more tasking or, hey, how can I help? They might just say 20 hours is 20 hours. So that's where you need to mitigate this opportunity by providing more oversight without micromanaging. The next term is norms, and that's going to represent the standard of behaviors in the organization. Norms can be picked up from leaders or through consequences that the company has implemented, and that's called absence control policies, which we'll get into in a little bit. The leaders will be your front line for norms. If you have a supervisor who is showing up late, leaving early, and consistently not working at work, then the people below them will see this and say, well, if the person in charge of me is not working while they're at work, why should I stay late, work hard all day, and come in early? That norm is being set, and it's a bad precedent, and it's contributing to these counterproductive behaviors. The final term I'd like to talk about is injustice. And that's the idea that sometimes people are being treated unfairly, or they feel they're treated unfairly. This could be by the organization or people within the organization. When they feel they're treated unfairly by the organization, this may include pay or benefits. If somebody's getting paid on salary and they are not getting authorized overtime, but they're working much more than 40 hours a week, and they don't feel they're getting paid enough for this salary compared to the hours that they're working, they may produce some counterproductive behaviors, whether it be stealing or not coming to work as much because, hey, I know I didn't finish my job, but I can't finish that in 40 hours. However, I'm not getting paid to stay past 40 hours, so why would I? And then if they're being treated unfairly by people, this could also come back to a leadership standpoint. If they feel like, hey, every time I stay here exactly as long as I'm supposed to, then my supervisor doesn't say anything. But if I leave a minute early, then they're always yelling at me or something like that. It's gonna create counterproductive behaviors in an environment that's not going to foster productive behaviors. And now I'll get a little bit more into those absence control policies that we talked about earlier. And these policies will make employees less likely to engage in the counterproductive behaviors to the extent that there is some negative consequences that are involved. So this could be having a late policy. Hey, if you come into work late 3 times, you're going to get written up. The next time after that, you're going to go to a review board, and the time after that, we're probably going to fire you. If that's written in stone during the employee's indoctrination process, you explain to them the late policies, then they're going to understand that actions have consequences. You can also, outside of just implementing behavioral barricades, such as, hey, if you're late, then this is going to happen, you can help them overcome barriers in life that are making it hard for them to come to work. Some of these things could be, hey, they have a sick child all the time, or not even all the time, just sometimes. You can be more flexible with their child care, or somebody has to go and coach their kid's baseball team, or their wife has this going on, or their whatever. You can be more flexible with your schedules. Hey, on Tuesdays, we understand that you have to leave early, so either on Wednesday, would you like to come in earlier or stay a little bit later, or would you like to come in a little bit earlier on Tuesday since you're leaving a little bit earlier on Tuesday? And also trying to open up the availability of hybrid working from home. That would help you become more flexible with these employees. Some jobs, such as the one that I teach for the Navy, is not possible to do remote work from. It is very much hands on the aircraft or teaching students hands-on, on-the-job training. But if it is possible, then the flexibility factor becomes a lot easier if they're doing hybrid or remote work. Thank you for listening to my last 5 questions. This has been my presentation for industrial psychology at Liberty University.